how old do you think children should start playing Dungeons and Dragons?
Probably 10, I reckon, around 10. Um, no, not that some kids might be able to do it earlier, but I think that that's kind of the age range where this stuff, Hero Kids, is getting too kidsy for them, and they want to play the same as the grown-ups. So there's a crossover there depending on where they are. A lot of the aspects of D&D are still quite complicated, for a 10-year-old. There's a lot there might be a lot of maths, there's a lot of management on your character sheet. If you're getting into spells and things, there's a lot of kind of cognitive load of what a spell does and what impact it has on other characters. And there's a lot of planning you have to do for your character as well.
Do you have
And
any tips for people running a game for kids?
so there's probably three easy tips for running a game with kids. Their attention spans are way shorter than adults. So like adults will play for 3 or 4 hours, and self-manage our energy levels. Kids maybe will play for 1.5 hours at a time. Younger kids a bit less. Older kids, into the 1.5 hours. But even my daughter, 1.5 hours, starting to get a bit toey and needing a break. So that's the key thing. Don't play for too long. Second thing is kids oftentimes don't have quite the same knowledge of what is the space of that they can explore when you're role playing. So often I will find myself when I'm playing with kids, I will pose situations as simple kind of binary choices for them, and they might go outside those. But if I see that they're stuck, I'll say, "Oh, do you want to go? Do you want to take this road or this road, or do you want to?" Do you want to go and talk to them, or do you want to sneak over there? So I think that with kids, and not that this doesn't happen with grown-up role players as well, right? With kids, you might want to be a bit more explicit about posing choices for them rather than just saying, "What do you want to do?" You might guide them a bit more through the role-playing experience. And lastly, I think kids, in my experience, and this might just be the ones that I've had, do have some trouble role playing their characters, especially when they're younger and speaking in their character's voice. So that can be hard for them. So, with older players, you might get people who will speak or find it easy to speak in their character's voice. With kids, they might not. You might have to help them and kind of coax them to speak as their character.
Do you think sometimes maybe this can happen to some new players too, but sometimes they think too a bit too selfishly. You can say it's like your character only serves the purpose of entertaining yourself instead of people around the table too. Because I think a really good player should also create a character that can entertain other people around the table.
Yeah, and works in a team with the other players. I haven't found that. I have found, again, kids, they don't know that. Sometimes they might think that it's okay to attack another player's character. So yeah, you still have to deal with those sorts of things. You have to manage, you have to actively manage your table a bit more. But again, with grown-up players, they're not always as mature as you would like, and you still have to manage those
Well,
behaviors
that's
as
where
well.
murder hobos come from.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking one thing that you did say, like one of the difference culturally between Australia and the play in Australia and play overseas, is that we never had the satanic panic that other countries have had around D&D, and certainly in America there is this cultural aversion towards D&D that is, I think, steeped in their kind of religious tradition there. Um, so I think that always when playing with kids, you got to be, ensure that if you're playing with other people's children, that their parents know what you're playing, and that the content might not be as brutal as or the situations are more kind of accessible for kids. So certainly in Hero Kids, people are knocked out, they're not killed. Monsters will run away or whatever rather than be killed. So there's that level of how you pose the situations. What is scary or accessible for kids that you have to manage as well.
All right, yeah, let's move on to Hero Kids. You have designed a game for children, a tabletop role-playing game for children, and I'm just kind of wondering, how do you get the inspiration for Hero Kids? Is it running games for children in D&D, or is it something completely different?
It started, well, it started, I guess, 7 years ago now. My daughter is now 10. So it started when she was 3 or 4, and we have a weekly game that we played here at my house. She was always interested in what's this game you guys are playing? Can I play too? Wants to come and throw some dice and defeat some monsters, that sort of thing. So D&D is way too hard. There's too much maths involved for kids who are that young, whether it's four,
Can you
five,
explain
six.
the system a bit, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. So Hero Kids, so unlike D&D where you have, things like modifiers and addition and subtraction maths, what Hero Kids is it's I might actually here I'll hold up a character sheet for you, right? If we can see it here, I've got my Hero Kids book. Here we go.
Okay.
It's
Okay, pull it back a
So
bit.
that's Hero Kids. Yeah, sorry. This is Hero Kids. It's available in PDF or in print from Drive-Thru RPG. Go there and buy it now. Um, there you go. There's my plug. So the idea of Hero Kids, if we can get this to actually not be completely overexposed, I'm just trying to get the exposure right. There we go. So you can see here that on the side, this is what's called a hero card. It's like a character sheet from D&D or another game, and basically the idea is that each character has only 3 attributes. This is like their strength up here, this is like their agility, and this is like their kind of magic or intelligence. And then they have an armor rating, and they have down here is their kind of health. So my goal with Hero Kids was to boil down D&D to really simple components. So each of these attributes, for example, simply has a number of dice associated with it, 1, 2, or 3 dice, depending on the character. And then each character only has, basically 3 health in it as well. And then over here, the characters might have a couple of skills. So they might be good at talking to people, or they might be, they might have some item they can use, and they have a couple of potions as well that can heal them. And the other side of this character sheet, I'm not sure how well we'll be able to read this, but basically they have a few different combat abilities they can do as well. They have like up here is a normal attack. And then they have a slightly like a special action, and then they have this special ability here that they have that's always on. And the idea of Hero Kids is that it's a game that kind of grows with the child as they're playing. So when they're young, the 4-year-old, for example, wants to play the game. They know that their character, when they want to attack someone, for example, they just roll a couple of dice. And it's a really simple system. They roll 2 6-sided dice or however many 6-sided dice. The enemy rolls however many 6-sided dice the enemy has in their armor, and whoever has the highest dice wins, and if they're equal, then the attacker wins. So it doesn't have any maths in it. It just has a comparison there between whether the number is equal or higher, and it's really fast. And even when the kids are getting attacked, they're rolling their armor dice as well, so they're participating in the action as well. But then as the kids get older, they might start to explore these other special actions and these bonus abilities, so that as their kind of their cognitive abilities grow, they can start to think about strategies here. So I just released a new Hero Kids adventure just last week actually, and my daughter who's now 10 and my son who's now 8 were using these kind of strategic and tactical abilities to kind of enhance their effectiveness, in combat encounters. They were using this teamwork here and their whirlwind attacks and positioning themselves, and they also had pets in this game as well, which the kids love. So they were using these in coordinated attacks and talking to each other and building this kind of teamwork so that they could defeat their enemies. So they really introduce younger kids to the idea of role-playing, the idea of how combat and actions and these things work, and then develop their skills as they go. So at some point, the kid who's played this for a few years, they'll just be able to transition into something like Dungeons and Dragons. They'll understand how combat work, how actions work.
You have been running a lot of games, like a lot of different types of games, like Dungeons and Dragons also. And from all your years of experience, do you mind like sharing some of your secret sauce? It's like, what's a few principles that you have on running a great game?
Oh God. God, I wish I had any. Number one, secret sauce. This is the secret that is better than all the others, right? Show up and be reliable. That's all I have. That's it. I don't know. I have. Oh, I wish there was. Try to be fair. Try to be consistent. Try like. Oh, like I wish there was a secret. There isn't one, But other than showing up, right? Be reliable. I think that's the most important thing, especially if you're a game master. Players can be slightly less reliable, but the game master has to be reliable, has to be dependable.
Before we end the interview, is there something that you want to tell people or a message you can pass on to others if you want?
Now I've got my daughter on there. No, I thank you for having me on the show. I think that here you go. I will plug my products. Here you go. Here's my new products. This this is let's try this the right way. This is Hero Kids. This is for kids. This is Forge Engine. This is for grown-ups. This is like the opposite of D&D, right? So I played D&D for a long time, and I thought, okay, how about I design a game which is as opposite of D&D as possible? So it is what's called it's a universal role playing game system to begin with. So it plays it, and this is the one I've been playing with lately. So we've played historical games in it. We've played fantasy games. We've played post-apocalyptic. We've played modern games. We've played sci-fi with the same engine. To the extent where we played a game where we started the game as World War II kind of resistance fighters. And then we took those same characters and we sent them back 2,000 years into ancient Rome. And so the game is designed so that the kind of engine, the way the characters are, they can transport between different time settings, different periods. The skills all still work, the equipment still works. So it's really robust in the way that works. So the way it's different from D&D is it's an attributes and skills based game. So it doesn't have classes. You just do class builds, and it doesn't have the probably the key part of it is the different action economy it has. So in D&D, where you might have your main attack action and your move action and your minor action. Forge Engine uses what's called an energy pool. So if you're familiar with something like the Fallout games on on the Xbox or PlayStation or whatever, how you have different action points, this has an action pool. So it's like the anti D&D, as I say. Where D&D is all structures and kind of safety railings. This is you make your character yourself, you build it yourself. So I just released the book of this. The PDF is up on DriveThruRPG. It's free at the moment, but I'm not sure.
No, I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is as I say the one that I've been playing with for a while. I've played a lot of D&D, and I came to be. And I played all through the D&D 5th edition playtest, so all through that, and and all through organized play, and so I'm like, okay, I think I'm done with fantasy D&D for a little while. I want to play some other stuff, and so that's the thing that really interests me at the moment. It's like, okay, what are these different? I love post-apocalyptic, I love sci-fi, I love modern settings. And it's like, okay, what are these new stories we can tell that are interesting, and what can we explore in these new stories?
Yeah, I mean, when you said you like sci-fi or something like that, is there a genre that you really feel like playing, or you really want to create? I don't know. Are you gonna like divulging too much of your secret, your next project, if you're gonna say?
No. I love post-apocalyptic, but my players do not. I think it's a genre that can be very challenging for people. If there's kind of the zombie aspect of it, which is very easy, but in post-apocalyptic games, it's more about the human condition. It's about what humans are, and it's about how humans behave when they're in adversity. And I like exploring that. My players, the people I play with, not so much. So it's an area that I like a lot. The historical stuff I love. Again, sci-fi is really hard. Sci-fi has a lot of problems with the kind of flexibility that players have to just leave locations. So you have to put other constraints about them. In sci-fi, you have a spaceship. If a challenge, something comes and attacks you, you just hyperspace away. So you have to put a lot of artificial constraints around players' mobility in those sorts of games that you don't have in fantasy games. In fantasy games, if if a dragon shows up, you can't just run away from it, right? Or if an ogre shows up, you can't run away from it usually. So there are all sorts of different challenges that all sorts of genres kind of throw up for us.
And that was Australia's Justin Halliday. You can find the games he had created down in the description section below. And here is a warm thank you to my patrons at Patreon. If you like what I'm doing, consider supporting me on Patreon. To everyone who is new, you can subscribe to expand your gaming horizon. And don't forget to click on the videos to open the world map. CJ, over and out.